8 archaeological discoveries more terrifying than horror movies that completely rewrote human history. What would happen if, one day, archaeologists unearthed a skeleton whose burial position alone was enough to convince them that ancient people truly feared the dead rising from their graves? What if the walls of an ancient church were built entirely from real human bones? Or what if a tomb overflowing with gold, silver, and priceless treasures turned out not to be the greatest discovery at all, but instead it was the historical secrets hidden inside that left scientists completely astonished? What if a single 2 million-year-old skeleton or a handful of ancient footprints preserved in the earth were enough to challenge beliefs that humanity had accepted for centuries? And perhaps most unsettling of all, many of these mysteries remain unsolved to this very day. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ancient History, the channel where we uncover the world's most extraordinary mysteries buried beneath the earth and reopen chapters of history that seem to have been closed for thousands or even millions of years. If you're fascinated by archaeology, captivated by ancient civilizations, and endlessly curious about the secrets that time has failed to erase, then today's video is sure to surprise you. In this episode, we'll explore 8 of the strangest and most haunting archaeological discoveries ever made. Discoveries that left the entire world in disbelief. You'll see a royal tomb containing more than 3,500 priceless artifacts, where the greatest treasure wasn't the gold itself, but the evidence that helped rewrite the history of ancient Greek civilization. We'll uncover a 2,600-year-old palace that unexpectedly emerged beneath the tomb, traditionally associated with the prophet Jonah after the war in Iraq came to an end. And we'll examine 25,000-year-old footprints discovered in Mexico that are raising a remarkable question. Did humans arrive in the Americas far earlier than we ever believed? But that's only the beginning. You'll also encounter chilling stories of walls built from human bones, graves where the dead were buried face down to prevent them from rising from their graves, and the skeleton of an ancient human ancestor that forced scientists to rewrite our understanding of human evolution. Every one of these discoveries is like a missing piece of history, but when those pieces are finally put together, they reveal something extraordinary. Human history is still filled with countless gaps, and ideas once considered unquestionable can be completely overturned by a single archaeological excavation. So, are you ready to uncover these incredible mysteries with me? If you are, then let's get started. Face-down skeleton, an ancient grave, and the medieval zombie curse that shocked the archaeological world. Do you believe there was once a time when people genuinely feared that the dead would rise from their graves? Not in a horror movie, and not as a bedtime story told to frighten children. It was a belief that terrified much of Europe for centuries. Even more remarkably, archaeologists have recently uncovered evidence suggesting that this fear was very real. The story begins around 2020, when archaeologists excavating an ancient grave in Germany discovered a mysterious skeleton that kept scientists searching for answers for years. The first thing that caught the experts' attention was that the man had not been buried in the usual way. Instead of lying on his back, the skeleton was buried face down. Beside him were a knife and a pouch filled with coins. From the very first moment, archaeologists knew this was no ordinary burial. So what made the living bury one of their own in such a strange manner? Were they trying to hide something? Or were they attempting to stop something even more terrifying? After years of research, Professor Amelie Alterog, a forensic anthropologist at the Institute of Forensic Medicine at the University of Bern in Switzerland, reached a surprising conclusion. The skeleton belonged to a man who died of the plague sometime between 1630 and 1650, during the period when the Black Death was still spreading terror across many parts of Europe. But what astonished researchers was not simply the cause of death, it was the reason he had been deliberately buried face down. According to a study published in the scientific journal PLOS One, Professor Alterog concluded that this burial position was no accident. People at the time believed it would prevent the deceased from becoming one of the undead, keeping him from digging his way out of the grave and returning to haunt the living. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But that's only the beginning of the story. To test this hypothesis, Professor Alterog and her colleague, Sandra Losch, examined nearly 100 ancient graves excavated across Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, spanning almost 900 years of history. The results were astonishing. Most of the face-down burials dated to periods when plague outbreaks were at their worst. This suggested that the burial was far from an isolated case, It was actually a fairly widespread funerary practice during times when people lived under the constant fear of devastating epidemics. Researchers also found references in numerous historical texts to a creature known as the Noxerer, which roughly translates to corpse devourer, and is often compared to what we would now call a zombie. According to medieval beliefs, those who died from the plague could return from the dead, continuing to spread disease and death throughout their communities. Another study published by National Geographic found that beginning around 1347, when the plague swept across Europe and claimed the lives of tens of millions of people, communities began adopting unusual burial rituals designed to prevent vampires, or the undead, from escaping their graves. But the question that fascinates many people most is this: why did they believe such things? According to Professor Altaraga, the answer lies in the natural process of human decomposition. After someone died from the plague, gases accumulating inside the body often caused it to swell, sometimes producing strange noises. As soft tissues shrank, the hair and fingernails appeared to continue growing. During decomposition, joints could also produce unsettling sounds. Even more disturbing, some bodies appeared to be biting their own flesh or chewing on the burial shroud wrapped around them. With the limited scientific knowledge available at the time, all of these natural phenomena were interpreted as proof that the dead were slowly coming back to life. Professor Altaraga also explained that before the 14th century, Europeans had little or no clear concept of vampires or the undead. However, after the plague wiped out nearly half of Europe's population, stories from Slavic folklore about the dead rising from their graves began to spread throughout the continent. Unable to understand how the plague was transmitted, many people believed that anyone who became ill after attending a funeral had been cursed by the deceased. That overwhelming fear eventually gave rise to the practice of burying the dead face down, in the belief that it would prevent evil spirits from possessing the body and stop the dead from ever returning to the world of the living. Terrifying, isn't it? The skeleton of a man, crushed by a massive boulder during a catastrophic volcanic eruption 2,000 years ago. Imagine this. One day, archaeologists uncover a skeleton trapped beneath a massive boulder weighing nearly 660 pounds. The skull is nowhere to be found. What would you assume happened to this man? Like most people, your first thought would probably be that the boulder fell on him, crushing him to death instantly. But in this case, the truth turned out to be very different. After months of research, scientists uncovered evidence that completely overturned that initial conclusion. The story has since become one of the most astonishing archaeological mysteries ever discovered in the ancient Italian city of Pompeii. It all began in late May 2018, when photographs of a victim of the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, excavated at the Pompeii Archaeological Park in southern Italy, spread across newspapers and social media around the world. The images sent chills down the spines of millions. There lay a skeleton pinned beneath an enormous stone, yet the skull was completely missing. Archaeologists quickly nicknamed the victim Masonry Man, or the man beneath the boulder. At first glance, the explanation seemed obvious. The excavation team believed the man had been trying to escape when Mount Vesuvius erupted in AD 79, the catastrophic disaster that destroyed Pompeii, Herculaneum, and several nearby settlements within a matter of hours. As he fled for his life, a boulder weighing roughly 660 pounds may have been hurled through the air by the tremendous force of the eruption, striking him with such incredible power that his head was separated from the rest of his body. That theory quickly spread through newspapers around the world, and many believed the mystery had finally been solved. But as you've probably guessed by now, archaeology is full of surprises. As researchers expanded the excavation and carefully examined the layers of soil beneath the skeleton, they uncovered a discovery that completely shattered the original theory. The man's skull was eventually found completely intact. Even more puzzling, it was located in a lower layer of soil than the rest of the skeleton. The Pompeii Archaeological Park later announced the discovery, acknowledging that it marked a major turning point in the investigation. So why was the skull separated from the body? After studying the site's geology, archaeologists arrived at a logical explanation. During the 19th century, numerous tunnels were dug throughout Pompeii in search of valuable artifacts. Those excavations disturbed the ground, causing portions of the soil to collapse over time. Researchers believe that this shifting earth likely caused the victim's skull to slide into a lower layer of soil, creating the mysterious scene archaeologists uncovered centuries later. Even more importantly, when experts carefully examined the skull, they found no signs of fractures or severe impact damage. If the enormous boulder had actually crushed the man's head, the skull would almost certainly have been shattered. Instead, it was remarkably well preserved. That single piece of evidence proved that the boulder was not the direct cause of his death. So what ultimately killed this unfortunate man? According to the latest findings from researchers at the Pompeii Archaeological Park, he most likely died from a pyroclastic flow, a fast-moving avalanche of superheated gas, volcanic ash, and toxic fumes racing down the slopes of Mount Vesuvius at tremendous speed. This was also the deadly force responsible for killing thousands of people in Pompeii, Herculaneum, and neighboring towns during the eruption in AD 79. Contrary to popular belief, most victims did not die from molten lava. Instead, they suffocated from toxic gases, dense clouds of ash, or were instantly killed by the extreme heat of the pyroclastic flow, which was capable of burning and killing within seconds. Even today, researchers have not yet completed a detailed anthropological analysis of the skeleton. That means the story of the man beneath the boulder is far from over. Could this skeleton still reveal new clues about the victim's final moments? Or about the catastrophic eruption that buried an entire civilization? Only time will tell. The mysterious belt buckle, discovered in the Czech Republic that may reveal an unknown pagan cult. My friend, have you ever imagined that a single small belt buckle buried beneath the earth for more than 1,300 years could change the way we understand medieval European history? When people think of archaeology, they usually picture royal tombs, hidden treasures of gold and silver, or massive ancient monuments. But sometimes, an object that appears completely ordinary can uncover the existence of an entire belief system that vanished from history. And that's exactly the story we're about to explore. It all began in early 2024, when researchers announced the results of their analysis of an artifact discovered near the village of Lani, about 20 miles west of Prague in the Czech Republic. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that it wasn't unearthed during a large-scale archaeological excavation. Instead, it was found by a metal detector enthusiast. The artifact is a bronze belt buckle, or possibly a decorative belt fitting, dating back to the 7th or 8th century. At first glance, it doesn't seem particularly extraordinary, but at its center is a strange carved image, unlike anything most people would expect. It depicts either a serpent or a dragon swallowing a creature that resembles a frog. Now think about that for a moment. Why would people over 1,300 years ago choose such a bizarre image to decorate something they wore every day? Was it simply an artistic design, or was it carrying a message that we're only beginning to understand today? At first, archaeologists believed the object was one of a kind, but the more they investigated, the more complicated the story became. Over the past several decades, nearly identical artifacts have been unearthed in Germany, Hungary, and several other locations throughout the Czech Republic. The remarkable similarity among these objects raised an important question. Could all of these buckles share the same origin? And could they be connected to a mysterious community that once existed in Central Europe more than 1,000 years ago? The boldest theory came from Jiří Makáček, an archaeologist at Masaryk University in the city of Brno. He believes these artifacts may represent the first evidence of a previously unknown pagan cult that connected different communities across Central Europe before Christianity became the region's dominant religion. According to Makáček, the image of a serpent or dragon devouring another creature appears in the mythologies of the Germanic peoples, the Avars, and the Slavs. Although no one today knows exactly what the symbol originally meant, it was clearly a familiar image shared by many cultures living throughout Central Europe during the early Middle Ages. Of course, this theory isn't based on speculation alone. In January 2024, the research team published its findings in the Journal of Archaeological Science, describing 4 nearly identical artifacts in remarkable detail. Besides the buckle discovered near Lani, another was found near Iffeldorf in southern Germany, approximately 200 miles southwest of Lani. A third was discovered near Zambék in Hungary, roughly 280 miles southeast, while the fourth came from near the town of Nový Bydžov in the Czech Republic, about 68 miles east of Lani. The appearance of nearly identical artifacts across several different countries suggests that these communities shared connections that historians had never previously recognized. Earlier research has shown that this style of belt fitting was commonly produced in Central Europe during the 7th and 8th centuries and was widely worn by the Avars. The Avars were a nomadic people believed to have originated on the Eurasian steppes before settling in the Carpathian Basin, located primarily in present-day Hungary around the 6th century. After establishing a vast nomadic empire known as the Avar Khaganate that stretched across much of Central Europe, they spread not only their political influence but also their distinctive style of dress. Over time, many neighboring peoples, especially the Slavs, began adopting similar belt designs. To determine where these artifacts actually came from, researchers employed a wide range of modern technologies including X-ray fluorescence analysis, scanning electron microscopy, and several other advanced material analysis techniques. The results were remarkable. All 4 artifacts had originally been carefully gilded with gold, and each was crafted from copper mined in the Slovak Ore Mountains, located in present-day Slovakia. The team also created highly detailed 3D models, allowing experts to compare the objects with extraordinary precision. They discovered that several of the buckles were nearly identical in shape, suggesting they were likely produced from the same casting mold, or at the very least in the same workshop. Taken together, all of this evidence is gradually revealing an entirely new picture of the past. Researchers believe the extraordinary similarities among these artifacts are far from coincidental. Instead, they may reflect the existence of a mysterious pagan cult that once united communities of different ethnic backgrounds throughout Central Europe. To this day, no one knows exactly what the image of the serpent or dragon swallowing the frog-like creature truly represents. However, in many ancient pagan traditions, battles between serpents or dragons and other creatures symbolize the struggle between opposing cosmic forces and played a central role in myths describing the creation of the universe. Because of this, the study's authors suggest that the image on the belt buckle may have been much more than simple decoration. It may have been connected to creation myths and perhaps even to religious rituals intended to ensure fertility, human prosperity, and abundant harvests. So what is this tiny belt buckle really? Was it simply a fashionable accessory worn by the Avars? Or could it be the very first piece of evidence leading us toward a forgotten religion that disappeared from history more than 1,000 years ago? Perhaps only future archaeological discoveries will finally reveal the answer. 25,000-year-old human footprints challenge the history of the first Americans. For years, scientists have debated one fascinating question. When did humans first arrive in the Americas? I think you've probably wondered about that yourself at some point. Many researchers have long believed that the first humans reached this continent just a little over 10,000 years ago. Honestly, I used to think the same thing. But an astonishing archaeological discovery in Mexico has shaken that theory to its core. And what's truly remarkable is that this time, the evidence isn't a complete skeleton or a priceless artifact. It's simply a series of human footprints preserved in the ground for tens of thousands of years. So who made these footprints? When were they left behind? And could they really be enough to rewrite the story of humanity's first journey into the Americas? Let's find out. The story began when Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, INAH, announced an extraordinary discovery in the Tarahumara Mountains of the northern state of Chihuahua. While surveying the Ahuatos Valley, archaeologists uncovered several remarkably well-preserved ancient human footprints. After analyzing them, researchers estimated that the footprints range in age from approximately 4,500 years old to possibly as old as 25,000 years. If the oldest date is confirmed by future studies, these footprints could become some of the earliest evidence of human presence anywhere in the Americas. What especially caught the attention of researchers was that the footprints did not belong to just one individual. Scientists determined that they were left by at least 4 adults and 1 young child. Just imagine that for a moment. Tens of thousands of years ago, a small group of people walked across that very landscape, leaving footprints that we can still see today. It's almost as if our distant ancestors unknowingly left behind a message that has traveled across time. After taking detailed measurements, experts found that the largest footprint measured about 10.2 inches long, most likely belonging to an adult man. The smallest footprint measured only about 6.7 inches and was identified as the right foot of a boy around 3 to 4 years old. That single detail allowed archaeologists to picture something remarkable. Both adults and children had once been present at this site, suggesting that it may have been home to a community. or at least a group traveling together, rather than the isolated tracks of a lone individual. But the story doesn't end there. About 31 miles from where the footprints were discovered, archaeologists identified 5 ancient caves filled with evidence of prehistoric human activity. The cave walls and ceilings still preserve numerous ancient paintings believed to date to the prehistoric, Lithic, and even the colonial periods. These paintings serve almost like an illustrated historical record, offering a glimpse into the daily lives and spiritual world of the people who once inhabited the Tarahumara Mountains thousands of years ago. Inside the caves, researchers also discovered several circular pits measuring about 10 inches in diameter and as much as 4.3 feet deep. According to archaeologists, these were not natural formations, but food storage pits intentionally dug by ancient people. This discovery suggests that the region's earliest inhabitants were not merely passing through. They had already developed ways to store food for long-term survival. That points to a much higher level of environmental adaptation than scientists had previously believed. By combining the evidence from the ancient footprints, the cave paintings, and the food storage pits, researchers propose that humans may have occupied this region as early as the Pleistocene epoch, which ended about 12,000 years ago. More importantly, if the estimated age of 25,000 years is confirmed by future research, the history of human settlement in the Americas may need to be completely rewritten. Until now, the oldest widely recognized evidence of humans in the Americas has often been the famous skeleton known as the Naharan woman, discovered in a cave in the southeastern Mexican state of Quintana Roo and dated to approximately 11,600 years old. However, the newly discovered footprints in the Tarahumara Mountains may be far older than that. If future studies confirm these findings, this will be much more than just another archaeological discovery. It could become the evidence that fundamentally changes our understanding of when the very first humans arrived in the Americas. Pretty incredible, isn't it? 500-year-old wall, built from human bones, inside an ancient church in Belgium, reveals a medieval secret. Imagine stepping inside a centuries-old church and discovering that some of its walls weren't built from bricks or stone, but from hundreds of real human bones. How do you think you would feel if you saw something like that with your own eyes? Honestly, just hearing about it is enough to send chills down my spine. My first thought was that it sounded like something straight out of a horror movie, but unbelievably, this discovery is completely real. What's even more astonishing is that archaeologists say these eerie walls were not the result of a dark ritual or a horrific massacre. Instead, they reflect the religious beliefs of medieval society and reveal how people of that era understood life, death, and the afterlife. The story began when archaeologists carried out excavations inside St. Bavo's church in the city of Ghent, Belgium. While investigating the church's foundations, they made an extraordinary discovery: a series of walls constructed entirely from human bones. As the first layers of soil were carefully removed, every member of the excavation team was left stunned. Before them stood rows of human bones that had been deliberately stacked and carefully arranged, rather than randomly buried over time. According to the initial analysis, these walls were built during the 17th century, making them more than 500 years old. What made the discovery even more remarkable was the building material itself. Instead of bricks or stone, the walls were constructed primarily from the femurs and tibias of adult humans, with several skulls placed at various points throughout the structure. It is an exceptionally rare type of construction. Janiek de Grijs, the leader of the research team, said that nothing like this had ever been discovered in Ghent before, and that many questions surrounding the site remain unanswered. At first glance, many people assumed the walls were evidence of a war, a deadly epidemic, or perhaps even some kind of sacrificial ritual. But after carefully studying the site, archaeologists reached a completely different conclusion. According to their findings, the walls were most likely built when the church cemetery was being removed or renovated. At that time, workers had to relocate a large number of human remains that had been buried there for centuries. However, religious beliefs of the period did not permit simply discarding the bones of the deceased. Instead, people chose a solution that was both practical and respectful. They reused the skeletal remains to construct new burial structures or ossuary walls where the bones could continue to be preserved with dignity. When researchers analyzed the age of the skeletal remains, they discovered that many of the bones dated back to the 15th century, approximately 200 years older than the walls themselves. In other words, the individuals whose bones were incorporated into these walls had died long before the structures were ever built. This finding strongly supports the theory that the remains had been relocated from an older cemetery rather than belonging to victims of a single event. But why did people during the Middle Ages place such importance on preserving human bones? According to researchers, the answer lies in their religious beliefs. Medieval Christians believed that one day the dead would experience a bodily resurrection. Because of this belief, the skeleton was considered the most important part of a person that remained after death. That is also why many graves from this period were built close to church walls, in the hope that the deceased would rest near the holiest place possible while awaiting resurrection. Another detail that drew the researchers' attention was that most of the bones used in the walls consisted of adult femurs, tibias, and skulls. Smaller bones, such as ribs, vertebrae, hand bones, foot bones, and the remains of children were found only rarely. Jonah de Gries explained that when workers cleared the cemetery centuries ago, they likely didn't have enough time to recover every small bone, many of which would have been easily lost after years of burial. Large bones like femurs and skulls were much easier to recognize, collect, and transport, making them the most practical choice for constructing the walls. Researchers also noted that children's graves during the Middle Ages often received less attention than those of adults. As a result, children's remains appear only rarely within this remarkable structure. This detail not only sheds light on how cemeteries were managed centuries ago, but also provides valuable insight into the social customs and religious beliefs of medieval society. Today, the bone walls inside St. Bavo's Church remain one of the strangest and most haunting archaeological discoveries ever documented in Europe. Yet behind their unsettling appearance lies no story of violence or mysterious rituals. Instead, they stand as powerful evidence of how people in the Middle Ages honored and preserved the remains of their ancestors according to the religious beliefs of their time. Fascinating, isn't it? The 2,600-year-old palace, hidden beneath the tomb of the prophet Jonah. Do you believe that some of the greatest archaeological discoveries can sometimes be revealed only after a devastating war? It may sound unbelievable, but that is exactly what happened in Iraq. For decades, archaeologists had been circulating an ancient rumor that beneath the tomb of the prophet Jonah lay a massive palace of the Assyrian Empire. Many searches were carried out over the years, but all of them ended in failure. Yet what archaeologists were unable to uncover for decades was unexpectedly revealed by tunnels dug by ISIS militants. The story begins in 2017, shortly after Iraqi forces regained control of eastern Mosul from the so-called Islamic State, ISIS. While assessing the damage at the Nebi Yunus shrine, believed by locals to be the tomb of the prophet Jonah, archaeologists unexpectedly discovered a network of secret tunnels deep beneath the rubble. At first, they assumed these tunnels had been dug by ISIS to hide or smuggle artifacts, but as they went deeper, they encountered something no one could have imagined. Beneath the ground lay an ancient palace dating back approximately 2,600 years from the time of the Assyrian Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations of ancient Mesopotamia. According to Iraqi archaeologists, this is an extremely significant discovery, as no historical records had ever confirmed the existence of such a structure directly beneath the tomb of the prophet Jonah. This means that a part of Assyrian history had remained buried and unknown for more than 2 millennia. As the team explored further inside the palace, they discovered beautifully preserved carvings that had survived thousands of years. The most striking among them is an image of an Assyrian goddess, believed to be the deity associated with the fountain of life, intricately carved into the stone walls. Despite the passage of time and countless historical upheavals, these carvings still reflect the extraordinary artistic and engineering skill of the ancient Assyrians. However, this discovery is also tied to a deeply tragic story. The Nebi Yunus shrine was destroyed by ISIS in 2014, shortly after the group took control of Mosul. For millions of Muslims and Christians, this was a sacred site associated with the prophet Jonah, and its destruction sparked global outrage. Ironically, it was this very act of destruction and the illegal excavations carried out by ISIS that unintentionally exposed the tunnel system leading to the ancient palace, which no previous archaeological excavation had ever uncovered. According to archaeologists, ISIS did not dig these tunnels for historical research. Their goal was to locate and steal valuable artifacts to sell on the black market. Unfortunately, many priceless treasures from the palace were looted before the area was liberated. Even so, experts say that the remaining architecture, reliefs, and archaeological traces still hold immense historical value, offering crucial insights into the Assyrian Empire and the development of the ancient city of Nineveh. Another major concern for archaeologists is that the entire tunnel system dug by ISIS was constructed very poorly. The narrow passages and weak structures make the ground highly unstable and at risk of collapse at any moment, posing serious danger to research teams working at the site. Because of this, accessing and preserving the ancient palace requires significant time and specialized engineering methods to prevent further damage. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that long before it was uncovered, there had always been a local legend in Iraq claiming that a vast ancient palace lay beneath the tomb of the prophet Jonah. This legend inspired multiple archaeological excavations starting in the 1950s, but none of them ever found any evidence. That is why, when the palace finally emerged beneath the ground, Iraqi archaeologists could hardly believe their eyes. A legend passed down through generations had finally been proven to have a real historical basis. From above, photographs of the Nebi Yunus shrine after its destruction in 2014 reveal the devastating impact of war. Yet even among the ruins, history unexpectedly revealed a secret that had remained hidden for more than 2,600 years. So how many more palaces, temples, or treasures of the Assyrian Empire might still lie buried beneath the ancient city of Mosul? Perhaps every layer of earth uncovered in the future will tell us a completely new story about one of humanity's greatest civilizations. What do you think? Or do you see it differently? If so, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. The ancient Greek tomb, containing over 3,500 artifacts, yet its greatest treasure was not gold. What do you think is the greatest treasure an archaeologist could ever discover? Thousands of golden ornaments, perfectly preserved bronze weapons, or an entire royal treasury buried for thousands of years? Most people would probably say gold and precious metals, since those are what usually make any excavation famous. But a discovery in Greece completely changed that way of thinking. Inside a richly furnished tomb filled with valuable objects, the most exciting find for scientists was not the gold or silver, but the historical secrets hidden there for more than 3 millennia. The story began in 2015, when a research team funded by the University of Cincinnati in the United States conducted excavations near the ancient city of Pylos in southwestern Greece, not far from the Palace of Nestor, a major center of the Mycenaean civilization. The excavation was led by archaeologists Jack Davis and Sharon Stocker, a husband and wife team. What is remarkable is that on the very first day of excavation, they discovered a completely intact tomb that had never been touched by grave robbers for thousands of years. No one could have predicted that this discovery would later be considered one of the most important archaeological finds in Greece in decades. The initial excavation lasted 6 months. The deeper the team dug, the more astonished they became. Before them lay the intact skeleton of an adult male, estimated to be around 30 to 35 years old. After analysis, experts concluded that he was a Bronze Age Greek warrior, because a finely carved ivory plaque depicting a mythological griffin, a creature with the head and wings of an eagle and the body of a lion, was found near him. The man was given the nickname the Griffin Warrior. But what left the excavation team nearly speechless was what surrounded his remains. During the first phase alone, they recovered around 1,400 precious artifacts, including weapons, armor, jewelry, and numerous objects made of gold, silver, and bronze. And that was only the beginning. In the years that followed, excavation and conservation work continued. To this day, more than 3,500 artifacts have been recovered from the tomb, making it one of the richest archaeological discoveries ever found in Greece. However, the most surprising aspect of this discovery was not the amount of gold or silver. According to researchers, the tomb itself helped answer long-standing questions about a historical period that had puzzled archaeologists for decades. The artifacts are gradually revealing how early civilizations formed, interacted, and developed in mainland Greece and Crete during the Mycenaean period. In other words, the greatest value of this discovery is not measured in kilograms of gold, but in the priceless historical knowledge it provides. During the excavation, researchers also uncovered remarkable details. Near the warrior's chest and abdomen lay an exquisitely crafted golden cup, while a beautifully designed double-sided necklace was found near his neck, suggesting he held a very high social status. Inside the tomb were also a bronze mirror, 6 ivory combs, and various precious stones such as amethyst and agate. Each artifact reflects the extraordinary craftsmanship of ancient Greek artisans more than 3,000 years ago. However, one detail particularly surprised archaeologist Sharon Stocker. She noted that not a single pottery item was found inside the tomb, an extremely unusual absence for a burial of this period. Instead, every cup, vessel, and container was made entirely of metal, including gold, silver, or bronze. According to Stocker, the Griffin Warrior was likely a person of exceptionally high status who did not value pottery, which was otherwise common in everyday life at the time. For Dr. Jack Davis, discovering the tomb on the very first day of excavation felt like a gift from history itself. The deeper the researchers went, the more they realized that every artifact in the tomb was a crucial piece of a larger puzzle, one that helps reconstruct the rise of early cultures and states on Crete and mainland Greece. Ultimately, no matter how valuable the treasure may be, archaeologists agree that its greatest worth lies not in gold or silver, but in the historical knowledge that no amount of wealth can ever buy. So who exactly was the Griffin Warrior? Why was he buried with such an extraordinary collection of treasures? And how many more secrets of the Mycenaean civilization still lie hidden beneath the earth? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain: every archaeological excavation is not just a search for ancient objects. It is a journey to uncover chapters of history that have been asleep for thousands of years. And that is what makes archaeology so fascinating, isn't it? The 2-million-year-old skeleton in South Africa that forced scientists to rewrite human evolution. There is something truly fascinating about archaeology. Sometimes, a single skeleton uncovered after millions of years is enough to overturn what scientists once believed to be true. And the discovery we are about to explore is a perfect example of that. For many years, anthropologists believed that an ancient human species had males that were significantly larger while females were much smaller. This idea was widely accepted for a long time. But then, a single skeleton was discovered, bringing with it a wave of new evidence that forced scientists to completely reconsider that assumption. Even more surprising, the difference had nothing to do with sex at all. Instead, it turned out to be the result of a remarkably rapid evolutionary shift that helped our ancient relatives survive in a constantly changing world. This discovery was recently published in the scientific journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution. The study was co-led by Professor David Straight of the University of Washington and Dr. Angeline Lees of La Trobe University in Australia, along with an international team of researchers. At the center of the study is a remarkable fossil labeled DNH155, excavated from the Drimmelen cave system northwest of Johannesburg, South Africa, one of the richest early human fossil sites in the world. This skeleton belonged to Paranthropus robustus, an extinct ancient human relative. Many people may find this name unfamiliar, but it is actually a very close relative of modern humans. Paranthropus belongs to the genus Paranthropus, while modern humans belong to the genus Homo. Both belong to the great ape family, Hominidae, and share a distant common ancestor. If the genus Homo includes species such as Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, and ultimately Homo sapiens, modern humans, then all species in the genus Paranthropus, including Paranthropus robustus and Paranthropus boisei, went completely extinct millions of years ago. What makes DNH 155 so important is its size. The skeleton belonged to a male individual, yet it was significantly smaller than previously discovered Paranthropus robustus fossils. For years, this size difference led scientists to believe that males of the species were extremely large, while females were much smaller. However, after carefully analyzing the bone structure, jaw, facial features, and comparing it with other fossils, researchers realized that this assumption was completely wrong. DNH155 was not an outlier. It represented an entirely new stage in the species' evolution. Scientists discovered that within roughly 200,000 years, Paranthropus robustus underwent a surprisingly rapid transformation. Their bodies became smaller and more compact, while their jaws and chewing muscles became significantly more powerful, allowing them to process tough, hard foods more efficiently. To distinguish between these two stages, researchers named the earlier, larger-bodied group the Drimelin group, and the later, smaller-bodied group the Swartkrans group. This means the difference was not between males and females, but rather a population-wide evolutionary shift over time. But what could have driven such a rapid transformation? The answer lies in the environment itself. By analyzing bones, sediment layers, and comparing other fossils from the same period, including Homo erectus, researchers discovered that around 2 million years ago, Africa experienced an extremely intense phase of climate change. Environments shifted rapidly, food sources became scarce, and entire ecosystems were disrupted. These changes also contributed to the disappearance of Australopithecus, the shared ancestor of both Paranthropus and Homo, in many regions. In such harsh conditions, Paranthropus robustus did not remain static. Smaller, more agile individuals with a broader diet had a higher chance of survival. Over thousands of generations, these advantageous traits gradually became dominant within the species. This is a powerful example of natural selection in action, where the environment determines who survives and who disappears from the evolutionary record. According to scientists, observing evolution through a single fossil is nearly impossible. However, when multiple well-preserved skeletons from different time periods are compared side by side, it becomes possible to reconstruct evolutionary changes spanning hundreds of thousands of years. And DNH155 is a crucial missing piece in that puzzle. Dr. Stephanie, a member of the research team at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa, stated that this is one of the most complete Paranthropus robustus fossils ever discovered. She added that further study of it will help humanity better understand our ancient relatives. Perhaps the most fascinating thing about archaeology is not simply finding ancient bones, but allowing those bones to tell the story of millions of years of evolution. And it is very possible that beneath the soils of Africa, many more fossils are still waiting to be discovered, each one holding new clues about the long journey that led to modern humans as we are today. Dear friends, we have just uncovered 8 of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries around the world together. Hopefully, these 8 findings have given you a completely new perspective on human history. Each skeleton, each artifact, and each trace left behind, seemingly forgotten by time, is telling a story that continues to challenge scientists and force them to question and rewrite what was once considered absolute truth. So which discovery impressed you the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe to Ancient History, and turn on the notification bell so you can join us on many more fascinating journeys of discovery in the future. And for now, goodbye and see you in the next video.